When you struggle to break a bad habit, like reaching for your phone the second you wake up or eating junk food late at night, it feels like a failure of discipline. We treat these behaviors as conscious choices, but within the brain, a habit is a physical mechanism that has locked into a set position. The limits of this mechanism are best illustrated by the case of Eugene Pauly. In the fall of 1993, Eugene contracted viral encephalitis, a disease that in rare cases targets the brain's most delicate tissue. The virus consumed a 5-centimeter sliver of cells near the center of Eugene's head, called the medial temporal lobe. He survived, but the damage was absolute. He lost his short-term memory and the ability to form a single new conscious thought. Eugene was stripped of the cognitive tools we associate with willpower. He couldn't plan, he couldn't remember his doctors, and he couldn't recall a conversation from 30 seconds prior. This tragic condition made him a singular test subject for understanding how the human body operates when the conscious mind is removed from the equation. Shortly after moving to a new home in San Diego, Eugene's wife, Beverly, discovered he was missing from the living room. He had slipped out the front door while she was getting dressed. Beverly panicked. Eugene's memory loss was so severe that he couldn't even draw a basic layout of his own house. If he was out on the street, he had no conscious way to recognize his own front door or explain to a neighbor where he lived. She spent 15 minutes searching the neighborhood before rushing back to call the police. But when she burst through the door, she found Eugene sitting on the couch, watching television. He had sap on his hands and a pile of pine cones on the table. He had taken a walk, collected souvenirs, and returned home with zero memory of the event. Eugene could not point to his kitchen or describe his street, yet he had navigated a complex neighborhood loop perfectly. A hidden, automated system in his brain had successfully guided his body home, while his conscious mind remained blank. While Eugene was taking his morning walks, researchers at MIT were looking for the physical seat of this behavior. They implanted microscopic sensors in the brains of rats to track neurological activity as the animals learned new routines. This is the experimental layout. The rat is placed behind a partition in a T-shaped corridor. When a loud click sounds, the partition opens, and the rat must find a piece of chocolate at one end of the maze. This top graph shows the rat's brain activity during early attempts, with dense spikes across the run as it thinks intensely. Now look at the bottom graph, recorded after a week. The conscious brain has powered down, dropping off almost entirely while in motion. Brain activity only spikes at the very beginning when the rat hears the click, and at the very end when it receives the reward. The data shows that a habit is a physical state where the conscious brain retreats. Once the routine begins, the mind goes to sleep while the body continues to execute the pattern. When the conscious brain shuts down, an ancient lump of tissue near the brainstem called the basal ganglia takes over. It is an oval of cells that stores patterns and acts on them without requiring active thought. This process operates as a 3-step loop. First, the cue triggers the behavior, then the routine, finally the reward. The brain burns energy identifying the cue, dims during the routine, and wakes back up to process the reward. This loop is how Eugene Pauly survived. Visual cues on his street triggered his basal ganglia to execute a navigation routine that required no conscious memory. Indeed, habits are a distinct physiological system. They allow the body to function with sophisticated precision, even when the conscious mind is entirely absent. This raises the question of why the brain is designed to offload so much control to the basal ganglia. The answer is chunking, a biological survival mechanism. By converting a sequence of actions into an automatic routine, the brain reduces the energy required for basic functioning. Consider the act of backing a car out of a driveway. It involves dozens of simultaneous calculations you make: pressure on the brake, checking the side mirrors, aligning the steering wheel, and monitoring oncoming traffic. Because this is a chunked habit, you execute it with almost no mental effort. This offloading of mundane tasks provides a massive evolutionary advantage. By automating survival behaviors and daily routines, the brain preserves its highest-level processing power for complex problem-solving and invention. Slowing down. This same evolutionary efficiency is exactly why bad habits are so resistant to change. Conscious willpower often fails because the thinking part of your brain is physically deactivated while the routine is in progress. You are attempting to use a conscious system to override a system that has been designed to bypass it. To change a habit, you cannot fight the routine directly. You must instead identify and manipulate the specific cues and rewards that wake the basal ganglia up. Our habits are the result of millions of years of evolutionary engineering. They are biological loops that respond to specific prompts, rather than moral choices that can be settled through discipline alone. To change your life, you have to understand the hardware.